Welcome to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages, with your host, Matthew Schiff. This is the podcast for all of those who are involved in the agriculture all the way to the distribution of beverages. And now your host, Matthew Schiff.
Hello and welcome to Harvest to Pour. I'm your host, Matthew Schiff, and today I'm here with Shannon Cooney, the owner and winemaker of Creek Winery in Centralia, Illinois. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. So tell us a little bit about Creek, what inspired you to become the owner of it and the winemaker, and kind of take us through the journey of where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of a fun story. So my wife and I met in Los Angeles, and part of our relationship early on was she wanted to have like a wine and cheese party. And so I was not a wine drinker at the time. I was in my younger 20s, living in Hermosa Beach, and we started on this journey exploring different wines. And obviously living on the West Coast, there's lots of opportunity to visit good vineyards and wineries. And so we enjoyed going up to the Santa Barbara area, San Ynez Valley, Ojai, those types of places, and then kind of expanded into San Luis Obispo and the Paso Robles area, obviously Napa, Sonoma, and as well as Oregon and Washington. We did a lot of wine touring. We did decide to get married. We got married in a vineyard. So we got married in a vineyard in Malibu, Malibu Family Wines at Saddle Rock Ranch. It was a great venue in 2009. And so fast forward, when we had children, we were thinking about moving back to the Midwest where my wife is from. So she's from Southern Illinois. And on a trip home, we were looking at properties and things weren't really going our way. I got a little bored and got a little frustrated and called up this local winery, Creek Winery, and we came out, and it was in December. So it was the last day of the year that they were going to be open. So we came out, the whole family came out, we did a wine tasting. I was super intrigued and interested in the Midwest wines and hadn't tried or tasted a whole lot of Midwest wines. So I was asking a lot of questions. And the gentleman who owned it, Bob Romero, moved here also from California. And so we had some things in common. And as I was asking questions, he said, "You're asking a lot of questions. Why don't you consider buying this one?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I said, "Okay, well, I'm interested. Like, tell me some more." So we came back, we toured the house. And it's one of those things where, it just didn't seem like it was going to be a possibility. I had a really good job in California. We had purchased a home recently in California. So to make this move was a big deal. And when we got back to California after looking at the house, I went out to my car, and my old license plate's right over there if you take a look at it. And it said 7 CCW. And I thought, that's a sign, right?
Wow.
Creek Winery's on the license plate in California.
Creek Wine. Like, hey.
Lucky number 7. So anyway, we figured out how to make it work. And within 6 months, 12 months, we had purchased the winery and we started the process of building it. Bob Romero had the winery for, a handful of years. And what was here was really just the basics of a hobby winemaking equipment, small equipment, but enough to get going and enough to get started. And another real fortunate aspect of it was we had a second cousin, Ryan Hyman, in the area who was a very good grape grower. And so he was growing grapes for other wineries local to this area, Clinton County, Marion County. And he stopped by and he said, "Hey, I heard you about the winery and, my grandpa and your grandpa." And so, made these connections. And he said, you'll make some wine this year. We'll help you figure out how to make it happen. So he had a little bit of surplus Faval Blanc grapes. So we got together and started the process of learning how to actually make wine. I think at that time I was very interested. I was pretty studied. So I had never made wine before, but I had taken classes at UCLA on how to taste wine, on how to serve wine, sort of more of a restaurant, hotel management type of course on, beginning stages of trying to learn how to serve wine, taste wine, how wine is made, etc. With the intentions of my passion outside of my career at that point was food and wine. So I love to cook and thought that maybe one day we'd have a restaurant. So I was kind of studying wine as an adjunct.
So this became kind of a blend into it. So all these pieces really unique lined up all the way down to your license plate. That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
This is one of the little signs, that it was there. And I think it, God's way of trying to guide you along the path of what you're destined to do.
That's hitting you upside the head. That is really neat. So what you said you found it basically as a hobby setup. So as you found it that way, what were your kind of first walk in? You realized what some of your challenges were going to be as you walked in.
Yeah. So not knowing everything that was needed in the actual wine production stages, I quickly ran into challenge after challenge after challenge in the initial phase. And this isn't to disparage the previous owner in any way. I think what had happened was that he was sort of paring down and the intention of potentially selling the property and not knowing if he'd have somebody available to buy a winery. And so I think a lot of the larger tanks, maybe some of the larger equipment, had kind of already gotten pieced off prior to the purchase. And so I didn't have a whole lot to work with to get started. And when you start looking at suppliers for pumps and presses and tanks and those types of things, you quickly realize that you can make wine in a plastic bucket for $5, or you can make wine for, $50 million with really fancy equipment and a laboratory and everything else. And it gets pretty confusing. Where do I start? What do I need? What do I have to have? Et cetera. So we fortunately, in many of the adventures that we've had, we just kind of took our time. We didn't add too quickly. We kind of bootstrapped the winery. So everything was a personal investment. It did kind of start as a, let's see how this goes. This is really fun. Something I really want to do. I kept my corporate job. So I commuted to Creek Winery in St. Louis from here, an hour and a half every day. My father-in-law started the horse program here on the property as well. So, really early mornings, waking up, helping with horses, making the commute to St. Louis, working the full-time job, then coming back and figuring out how to operate a winery. Luckily, at that stage of my life, I had a lot of energy and a lot of passion and a lot of...
How long were you able to sustain that?
So let's see, we moved and started making wine in 2015. And so I retired from the corporate job in 2022. So I did it for about 7 years. In the meantime, we had 2 small kids, Posey and John, that we were raising here, as well as lots of animals. It's a working horse farm, so dogs, cats, duck, things like that.
Yeah, talk about the horses and stuff like that.
Yeah, my father-in-law, Mindy's dad, Dave Cool, had some dreams of owning horses. And as we were putting the winery together, he started putting the horse program together, and they've kind of grown side by side. And it really, I think, makes Crooked Creek a unique place to visit.
Yeah.
We've got some of the best bred, most popular names in the cutting horse and reining horse industry. If you've ever seen like Yellowstone or the competitions where horses are bred to work cattle, working ranch horses, more agile, quick. They cut calves from packs, and there's different competitions and things that they compete in. Mm-hmm. That's what the horses are here are bred for. And so they're bred here, raised here, and then sold or loaned to trainers to compete in types of competitions. And they're shipped off all over the country, Texas, Oklahoma.
And it clearly has an influence, since the logo on your bottles has a horse on it.
So the gentleman who built the property, he actually was into horses. And so there was, a horse barn here that had remnants of the horse program. And then the Romeros put in the winery. And so we just put them back together.
That is really cool. I think it's a great idea. You can be a great attraction piece too, just to come out here and see the horses. And they were just right down when I drove in.
People always ask. People love to come see the horses, especially this time of year in the spring. There's babies, so we have somewhere between 8 and 12 babies every year. Baby horses are fun to see, and they're playful and fun to watch. People love to come out and see the horses, but they always ask, "Can we ride the horses? Can we?" I always tell them, my classic answer is, the insurance guy doesn't love the drinking wine and riding horses concept as much as the drinking wine and watching.
Oh, man. All right. So what are some other challenges you had to overcome? Like, you've been in business for how many years?
The winery?
Yeah.
So this is our 10th season.
Your 10th season? Okay. So what was any other early on besides equipment? Do you have any process or just kind of organizing the staff challenges to getting this?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of challenges. I think I approached winemaking in Illinois differently than some others that were here before me. So when I first started making wine in Illinois, getting together at winemaking roundtables and things, trying to understand wine, I was approaching it more from like an end game. I had experienced really fine wines. I had preferences when it came to what styles of wines I enjoyed. I tasted lots of wine from America, but also from around the world. I'd been fortunate to be exposed to lots of really nice fine wines. And so I had a pretty good palate for what I wanted to make. And I was very unsure about how we were going to get from A to Z.
Oh, okay.
With the fruit that's available in Illinois because of the growing season and the climates and the microclimates and things that we have to work with. And so initially it was asking questions and trying to understand things like, hey, what is Illinois good at? Like, what can we do well here? What styles can we do well here? Is it red? Is it white? Is it rosé? Is, tannic wines? Is it non-tannic wine? What is it that we've experienced so far in a very young winemaking region? So Illinois isn't making wine for a very long time like some other countries have. In the United States, it's only a 50, 60-year-old proposition. So
Yeah.
it was really trying to find identity, I think, was the most important part early on. And I think that what I found through that journey is that a lot of us were on that road together, and that book had not yet really been written completely. And so what we ended up going is understanding that the Chamberson grape, which is a red grape, grows really well in Illinois. It's the most widely planted grape in the state, and that it had potential to make several different styles of wine, one of them being rosé. And what you see often now in Illinois is the Illinois tourism promotes everything is coming up rosé in Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay, so where Missouri has Norton, and California has Cabernet, and Oregon has Pinot Noir, I think in Illinois we have the opportunity to make really nice rosé wines out of the Chamberson grape. And I think we have a lot of potential in white wine, especially this growing region that we're in southern Illinois, just a little bit further north of the Carbondale wine trail, the Shawnee Hills wine trail. The red grapes grow just a little bit better, even though it's only one zone south. The red grapes ripen just a little bit nicer south, but I think the white grapes, like Seyval Blanc, Vidal Blanc, Chardonnay, I think they grow a little bit better right here. And so we found a place of making some really nice Chardonnay wines, some really nice Seyval Blanc wine, as well as Chamberson Rosé.
Wow, okay. So you definitely have isolated the variety, and I guess the terroir is where they grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to isolate climate as well. And this is all new to Illinois.
Yeah,
it
right.
sounds like. Okay.
All new. I mean, obviously there are definitely some pioneers that
Yeah.
came before that had helped figure some of these things out. And we wouldn't know that Chamberson was a good grape to grow in Illinois if it wasn't
Okay.
for a lot of hard work and labor of those that came before us. So I don't want to pretend that I necessarily figured any of that out. I think that was just one of many that took what they had started and continued to try to find direction. But what I do take some pride in is just trying to work with the end in mind and trying to make Illinois wine not just that's a palatable wine, but to try to reach high and make a wine that meets some of the other standards of some of the best wines of the world, even though that hasn't been achieved yet, I don't believe.
Okay.
There are some styles like rosé and like Chardonnay that I think in a taste test can stand up to some really nice wines.
Oh, that's excellent. This actually is a great segue into our Harvest to Pour section of this interview. So the Harvest to Pour is the harvest. We're going to talk about sourcing. We're getting in a little bit into that right now, and why you source what you source, and then what you take, make it uniquely Creek. And then eventually we'll go into the pour, and the pour is more of the marketing, how you attract people and keep them coming back. So let's take us back to the harvest. Initially, you were talking about some of these varietals. Now, are all your grapes local that you source, or do you source them from any place else?
Yeah, they're all local. So
Okay.
originally we had a small vineyard here on the property, and it had Chamberson and Chardonnay grapes. We had a really tough winter, the winter prior to moving here. And so the vineyard had received some disease, or we had some damage based on some previous viruses and other disease that was in the vineyard. It didn't hold up to that really cold winter. And so we had maybe half a vineyard really when we got started. And so we tried to do what we could to bring some of that back, replant some of those varietals. And we had a couple of harvests off of an estate vineyard. And that gave me the opportunity to understand the difficulties in growing grapes in Illinois and all the challenges that the grape growers have. And then I also had Ryan, who I mentioned before, who was here when we started, and he was running a very successful vineyard, and he had been awarded, grape grower of the year, viticulturist of the year in the state of Illinois, and had a vineyard that had lots of varieties. It had some Vigneault, it had some Seyval Blanc, it had some Chamberson, may have had some other things as well, but those are the three that I remember the most, and maybe some Vidal Blanc as well. And so we got the opportunity to sort of experiment with some of those different grape varietals. And then there's another gentleman named Nick Deiters, who the three of us spent a lot of time drinking wine, experimenting with grapes and winemaking. And these guys weren't just grape growers, but they would come here when they delivered their product, and they would spend the day and help with the crush process.
Oh, awesome.
I think one of them is famous for telling me that no good wine was ever made in Illinois without a whole lot of cheap beer. So those crush days could be a lot of fun. Getting the grapes processed into grape juice with a few of Southern Illinois' favorite Busch Light or something like that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. So it comes with its own unique culture.
Yeah.
So you've narrowed it down to sounds like about two style of grapes at the moment.
So yeah, just so back to you asked the question about the local fruit. I just want to follow up on that. I think one of the things that I was unexpected was how good some of the local grape growers were here close to Crooked Creek Winery. So Nick and Ryan are two good examples, but we've worked with 5 or 6 different vineyards that are all fairly local. The farthest away is probably Makanda, Blackjack Vineyard. We've had a nice relationship with them. We've purchased some Cabernet Franc grapes, which for Southern Illinois, that's a Vitis vinifera varietal, so a European grape varietal, not a hybrid varietal, which is what we typically make wines with. So to have the opportunity to work with fruit like that was a lot of fun. And I think the furthest, some vineyards in St. Rose, Carlisle, Albers, Illinois, Walnut Hill, Makanda, those are sort of all pretty local within, 45 minutes of here.
So definitely the ecosystem between the winemaker and the grower is very close knit relationship. What do I understand the growers providing the grapes. So what influence you as a winemaker have on the grower?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has to be a good relationship. And honestly, I feel very blessed. Like Nick and Ryan and I are still really good friends and enjoy doing a lot of cooking meals and doing lots of. And I learned so much from those guys about grape growing that helped influence me as a winemaker. And I think vice versa. I think exposing those guys to some different types of wines of the world that I was familiar with helped sort of expand their palate for wine and encourage them to kind of, maybe go the extra mile in the vineyard to get the highest quality product we can to try to push the boundaries of quality and winemaking in Illinois. So that's a really great partnership. But to be more specific with you from a scientific or a process standpoint, it's pretty simple. If you have a vineyard and you don't make wine, you're trying to sell as many grapes as you can. And when it comes to yields on plants, higher yields typically means lower quality fruit. So if you over fertilize plants or you over crop plants and you have a higher volume or tonnage of grapes, which is worth more money, it's not necessarily the highest quality product that they're putting out to the wineries. And so you have to have a fair and honest relationship with, hey, what kind of season was it? What are the yields going to be like? How much fruit have we dropped? How much thinning did we do? What is the chemistry at pick time? What the winemaker really wants to have control of the harvest chemistry, the pH, the total acidity, the sugar content of the grapes so that they can best predict the style and the end result of the wine that they're trying to make. Mother Nature is obviously the big wild card there. Rainstorm or hail or, drought or anything can impact those. And so that's a decision that has to get made between the grape grower and the winemaker if they're two separate companies or two separate people each and every year. And it gets to be a little bit stressful come pick time, especially in our situations. We're Midwest winemakers, so we're not producing we're not producing millions of gallons of wine. And so most of us have other jobs. So, hey, it's going to rain on Friday. Can we pick on, when can we pick? Can we pick on Thursday? Can I take time off? Can you help? Can he help? Who's going to pick? How are we going to get all these pickers together? All of that scrambling at pick time can be pretty stressful.
The logistics could be pretty stressful on that. So this is a great segue getting into making your product uniquely yours. What kind of, you said you were on the West Coast for a good while, and then the winery scene out there is probably the oldest, the second oldest in the United States, I believe. What influences did you bring from that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There were some really fun wines in California. I think my best memories are probably Paso Robles, where less than Napa, like you could walk up to the barn, and we make wine in a barn here, winery, but they do that in Paso Robles too. Big red barn on a pretty property, and you see the farming aspect of it. And they let you in the back door. And I remember spending afternoons just walking around with winemakers, asking questions and doing a ton of learning before I knew I was going to be a winemaker, but I was really, really interested. Just being able to have that relationship with a winemaker and see the back of the house and tour, it was inspirational. But I always kind of knew here in Illinois making wine that we weren't going to be able to make those kinds of wine because the Californian climate with the heat in the summer or the heat in the daytime and the way that it cools down in the evening, wasn't possible in the Midwest. And so in order to ripen red grapes like that and have those condensed and big, juicy, fruity flavors, that requires that type of climate. And you don't really have that. So unfortunately, living in the West Coast didn't influence the wines that I wanted to make, but I have a passion for things Italian. And so I love Italian wine. We got married in Malibu on a vineyard, but we honeymooned in Italy. And so spending some time in Montalcino with a family there that makes Brunello out of Sangiovese, and seeing and getting to spend about a week living in their home and watching them and their process, and getting to taste wine from the big 600-liter botti that they store the wine in, which are big Slovenian casks that are, sometimes generations old. You see this whole other side of winemaking, this old world winemaking style where, they've been making wine for a long, long time, and they aren't as concerned about some of the scientific nitty gritty details.
They're the same way about coffee over there too.
And I love that style. I like those earthy and complex, and the smells are a lot harder to pinpoint. You don't smell raspberry jam. You smell things like earthy forest floor and a dampness and complexities that gives me kind of like the chicken skin.
Yeah.
And so my first epiphany wine was a Brunello di Montalcino, which, when I describe an epiphany wine, I do some wine school classes out here that are really fun. And I get to experience sometimes folks that say, I really only like sweet wine. And, we do some things with sweet wines, but we're really trying to expand palates. And they finally taste a dry wine. They're like, oh, I get it. And I got the chickens, I got the goosebumps, because they just kind of have that epiphany experience where they finally understand how amazingly beautiful a fine wine can be if you go on that journey with it in the glass, and with the aromas and the different aspects of tasting it on the palate and wanting to taste it again and getting different experiences.
Okay.
So that first epiphany wine was a Brunello di Montalcino. And so how that's impacted the wines that we make here is the Chambourcin grape I wasn't a huge fan of when I got, just really didn't like the dry red wines that it made. The sweet wines were fine. Like I said, we went on this journey to experiment with rosé style, and I loved some of the rosé wines. And we found that very early on in our winemaking journey here at Creek. And I think our rosé was the wine that kind of helped put us on the map a little bit early on.
I had a little bit. It was a very good rosé. It smelled like watermelons right off the bat. Nothing I noticed.
That's great. I mean, I love that it has that smell. That's one of the smells that I definitely look for in the rosé. Kind of a watermelon rind, a little bit of cranberry. It's meant to be a dry expression of a red grape. And so, but the dry red wine was a struggle. And so finally, like a long story short, we got some Cabernet barrels from Schaefer Vineyard in Napa that were used once to make Cabernet Sauvignon. And we got them shipped here, and we decided to age the Chambourcin we started with 12 months and we went to 18 months, and now we're at 24 months. So we let that wine sit in there for 2 years, baby it, take care of it, make sure it doesn't oxidize and things like that. And it condenses that Chambourcin. It mellows the acidity out a little bit. It adds some extra tannin. We've experimented with some different tannin additions in the process of the crush as well. The Chambourcin grape, unfortunately, doesn't have a ton of tannin in the skin, so it doesn't have a ton of structure or anything to work with. So trying to find that balance, what we found is we can produce a wine that to me reminds me of a simple Italian wine that has a little bit of structure, a little bit of earthiness. And some of that earthiness, quite honestly, comes from used barrels. And we've used barrels many times like they do in other countries. And you do get a little bit of Brettanomyces that lives inside the oak in those barrels. And that Brettanomyces does have an impact on wine. And I know a lot of people look at Brettanomyces as a wine fault. And in a young winemaking region like Illinois, there's some people that are very serious about not having that impact the wine. I was the opposite. I was like, you know what? This is just part of the natural process. It helps produce the types of wines that I enjoy drinking. So I don't mind going the road less traveled. And we're going to age these wines for 2 years in a barrel, even though that economically, that's not the smart thing to do either. But we have finally settled on our Chambourcin Reserve, which is a 2-year barrel aged, not new barrels. So once used, twice used, 3 times used barrels. And that's our signature black label Chambourcin. So I think that between that and the rosé, and then also the white label is the Seyval Blanc which is just more of a Sauvignon Blanc style of the Sauvignon Blanc. So between those three signature wines in our signature restaurant style label, it's a black,
Oh, thanks for sharing that unique approach. That's really nice. I'm just starting to, it's in some way showing the purity of Illinois wine starting to come out, and you're going to push that envelope. Somebody else will say, well, he can do that. Maybe I can do this. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I agree with you. I fell in love with the in Italy Rossos, where they're like, you're not going to chill the wine. They look like me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, it's room temperature. Drink it. I'm like, okay, and it's really good.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah. And now a word from our sponsor. Hey, are you spinning your wheels trying to figure out what will really boost your business's bottom line? At Emberry Solutions, our Profit Priority Workshop is here to cut through the noise. We help you zero in on what truly matters, aligning your team, optimizing your processes, and magnifying your profits. Imagine your business running smoother than ever, with every decision and effort leading straight to increased profits. That's what focusing on the right priorities can do. Ready to boost your efficiency and profits? Visit Emberry Solutions and let's start making your business work smarter. At Emberry Solutions, we take your business from bottlenecks to breakthroughs. All right, so we're going to briefly get into the pour, but I'm going to take pour because you said you have your course classes and you help expand the palate of in our region, the Midwest region, as typically a sweet wine drinker.
Yeah.
That, I think, as the pour, is why I say it was kind of the marketing and bringing people back. Does that play a big part of that? And what brings people back? Is that education?
Yeah, I think so. I think it started early on. Mindy and I used to do like a Facebook Live on Wednesdays, Wine Live Wednesdays, and we would open a bottle and we would have, Ryan come and talk about growing grapes in the vineyard. And it was very educational, and it was about just sharing the knowledge of the process of making wine, because we were on that journey and we just wanted to share it with people. So much of what we do at Creek Winery is about trying to make good wine and bringing people together. And in our lives, bringing people together over wine has been an opportunity for people to share and grow and experience life together. And so we decided to do that live. It was be literally Mindy and I in the living room, and maybe invite a guest, and we would taste some wines. Sometimes it would be our wine. Sometimes it would be another wine from somewhere else in the world that we were working towards developing those profiles. And so I think that's what started it. And then when we opened up the wine bar downtown, we had some different places to experiment with. And one of those is a big sort of dining room that has a giant projector. And so I go all out with a slideshow. I love maps. I love geography. So I like looking at places where these products are made, whether it's Italy or France or whatever, and looking at pictures of the vineyards and seeing the microclimates and the mesoclimates and the macroclimates and the altitudes of some of these vineyards or the valleys or whatever it is, and helping folks taste with some of that knowledge as they go into it. And we'll taste a Cabernet from high up on Diamond Mountain in Napa, and we'll taste one from the valley and see what the difference is.
Oh yeah, the soil types have so much.
Yeah.
That one, that's interesting. Yeah, that one. I couldn't do that one, but it was interesting that I never thought that much earthy tone.
We've pushed the envelope. We've tasted rosé wines from the Canary Islands where they're going in those volcanic depressions that they make, and it's just black volcanic soil.
Wow.
Soil, and it makes them interesting. But we typically kind of pick. So every year in the slow season, which for us is the winter time, I'll do a wine 101, which is a 4-part series of how to taste wine like a professional. And so we'll do more about the process of how to taste wine consistently, what to look for, the flavor wheel, the components of wine. It's not okay to just say I like a wine or I don't like the wine. Teaching people to evaluate the acidity and tannin and sweetness and the fruitiness, and is there winemaking involved, like oak barrels or other thing. And that's a lot of fun, but I probably enjoy sort of the more avant-garde classes. Like this year we did a wine and music tasting, which was really, really extraordinary.
Wine music tasting.
Okay. Literally the entire group of 15, 20 people's perception of a wine can change based on changing the song that we're listening to together.
Really?
And what we found this year, which was really, really interesting, was the 80s didn't pair well with mud.
True. Okay.
I don't know why. I actually didn't expect that.
Caramel was fudge.
Maybe they were doing something else in the 80s. I'm not sure. But what another epiphany with the wine and music was, I had like an 80-year-old woman just blown away. We were listening to Fade to Black by Metallica, but in symphonic form. And I think that when you have a lot of instruments activating sensory components of your brain, it translates to your ability and the olfactory system and your taste buds to experience volume of things at once. And so they made these wines just kind of explode with different. I know it sounds kind of kooky, and I even told everybody it's a little, we're gonna push the limits here. But what was really cool was to see it happen sort of across a lot of.
And you see expressions in their
experienced
faces
wine drinkers
and,
to inexperienced wine drinkers, and go, wow, this is really it's really changed for me. So things like that are a lot of fun.
That is really cool. Yeah, that's wow. Okay, that's definitely going to get people talking about you going back. I like this approach. I mean, there's always far out from a larger town, larger city.
Yeah, we're about an hour from downtown St. Louis, so we're not too far, but it's still an hour drive.
Yeah,
we're talking about drinking, so people have to be responsible.
Drinking and just planning to come out here and putting that time in. So, but something like this would definitely just intrigue enough people to come back out, try again, and bring their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the classic tasting room experience here. I think talking about I think one of the biggest things that helped us reach more people outside of just typical social media marketing and things was 2019. We did win some awards for best red wine in Illinois, but we also got St. Louis Magazine's and their A-list awards. And I think a lot of people that had never heard of Creek Winery started to make that drive and check things out. And so that really kind of pushed us forward to some degree and allowed us to kind of open the second location and then start to think about how can we do more things like wine pairing dinners with local restaurants, so that that 4-part Wine 101 course, it always culminates with a wine pairing dinner at a local restaurant where I pair all the wines and we decide. We'll do blind tastings through a lot of them, and we'll decide which wine paired with fettuccine Alfredo or whatever it is. So that's been an evolution, I would say, from what you think of the classic, like come to the tasting room and you put up a bunch of Facebook posts like, hey, come see us and this is what we have going on, to all of these different channels, and having the second location, the wine bar, being a little bit more eclectic in what it offers, lots of craft beer, lots of cocktails. We're really into craft cocktail making stuff at the wine bar now, both with wine and without wine. So it's expanded everybody's ability to reach different types of people. It expanded our ability to reach different types of people, and sort of with hopes that maybe it brings them back to tasting drink.
And your second location is more in the downtown Centralia area, is that?
Yeah, it's about 10 minutes from here where we're sitting in the tasting room at the farm. And they're two totally different experiences. So this is, quaint, peaceful, quiet, small, and got a 4-person bar, and you can put about 10 people for a tasting inside the actual tasting room, right?
Yeah.
But the back veranda here seats about 80 people. And so we can have, quite a few people here enjoying a nice day and listening to a musician or something. But the downtown wine bar has a totally different purpose and definitely more of an urban vibe, more of our experience in Los Angeles, my experience in New York City.
There's your influence.
Yeah,
okay.
Trying to bring a little bit of that classier wine bar, cocktail bar feeling to a rural downtown city of Centralia. Again, kind of taking the road less traveled and breaking the mold and just doing what it is that we want to do because it's what we've enjoyed. And we're probably a little bit, I don't know the right word. We don't do a whole lot of market research or, what's going to work and what's not going to work. Because for us, it really wasn't about how do we make the most money. It was how do we create a better quality of life for ourselves and our friends and our families and our community here in Centralia. So the wine bar has spun into this whole additional, set of projects with the revitalization of downtown Centralia that I'm really, really excited about and where I'm dedicating a lot of my time now. But we can talk about that some more if you want to.
You're segueing almost perfectly. But before I get into that piece, right now, we have these two locations, what's your biggest kind of open challenge right at this moment?
In what area? Like for the winery itself,
For the
the
business
wine,
of the wine.
the business of
Yeah.
wine. Yeah, the scalability of the small winery has been a bit of a challenge. Just the economics of it alone are a bit challenging. Like I mentioned earlier, we kind of bootstrapped this thing in the beginning, and 2019 winning A-lists. We started getting a lot more visitors. The winery gets a lot more tourism, out of state types of visitors, which is great. But the expense of coming up with what you need to buy bottles and bottle your product, once or twice a year, those are big hits. And I'm trying to do a lot of different things. And so staffing obviously is expensive, and you want to hire great people and retain great people. And that means you got to pay them, what they're worth, and you got to treat them like family, and you got to bring them in and be a part of the family. And so the struggle now is scalability. And I think what we need to do, I think what the challenge is how do we make twice as much wine?
Okay.
And probably sell it to more retailers. So it's probably the wholesale side of the business. And then you're getting into the distribution networks and who's going to pick it up. And I don't think we were mature enough in what we produced up until this point to go for that next step in the journey. If you had come here 5 years ago and said, what wines would you want to put in Chinook's grocery stores? I'm not sure I would know which ones I would want to send out there. And there was one time we were making like 24 different styles of wine, trying to find what we liked and where we were
You're
going.
retaining focus, and then
I think we've
now's the next time
focused
to
it
go
down.
wide. Next step.
Yeah, I think
So you
we've
got the
narrowed
point.
down what we do and what we do well and what we like. And now it's a matter of scaling and producing a higher volume of those and getting them out to more people outside of our local area.
Great answer. So now we're going to come back into your two locations. Where, besides scalability in the community, where do you want to take this business?
Yeah, so I think the winery and Crooked Creek Winery downtown has given us a platform to bring excitement and tourism and some more vision for what our downtown could be. And so when I retired in March of 2022, we started a real estate development company. We started purchasing some historic buildings in the downtown area with the goal of, in the next 10 years, bringing more lively spaces to the downtown and bringing together entrepreneurs and retaining talented people that are coming out of the schools in this area or the community colleges, and giving them hope and opportunity and resources and partners so that we can create a place in downtown Centralia that people want to come and visit, not just to see the winery, but to see a brewery or to see other authentic manufacturers or to shop the local boutiques or to come to some really great regional restaurants. And so we have some great restaurants. Jerry's restaurant is Centralia House. There's some classic, American style restaurants in Centralia that people love. But there's room for some more modern takes on food and some more exciting forms of entertainment. So one of the things that happened during COVID was we opened the wine bar 4 days before COVID hit. So then we had to shut it down.
You have no idea how many stories I hear that say the same thing. We opened 3 days before COVID hit. We opened a day after COVID hit. Oh yeah, there's something to this.
What COVID did was it forced us to build a wine garden outside, and we had live entertainment outside, and the community supported it. I mean, they were amazing. The community came to see live music. We, at the time you had to follow whatever rules you were supposed to follow, but we could follow those in an outdoor wine garden and listen to music, and then we allowed people to bring food in. And I think that's helped supported the local economy at the time and gave everybody a place to go. And and I think that's now morphed into a more modern version of, hey, we can do this in downtown Centralia. We can have more than one place have live music on a Friday night. We can have multiple restaurants be successful that we can do with different types of eclectic food. And we can have people living in a neighborhood downtown where they can walk out of their apartment, walk down the street, have dinner, listen to live music, have some drinks, shop a boutique, et cetera. And I think that's what we have to do not just in Illinois, but in this country. I think we have to bring entrepreneurialism and support small business, and we have to do it together. And it takes a whole community. This isn't possible without a whole lot of support from city government, from Chamber of Commerce, from all the other business owners that are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to survive and make money and grow their business, but they're trying to provide for a better quality of life in the community. And I think we have a lot of that happening in Centralia now. I think Centralia over the years has had some different versions of a reputation for whatever reason, but it's a very historic town. Been around since they put the train straight through it and called it Centralia. So the Illinois Central Railroad moved its headquarters from Chicago to Centralia, and that's where a lot of this construction started. And then the oil boom and other things helped build a pretty thriving downtown. And there's a lot of history and a lot of pride there. We're the winningest high school basketball program in state history.
Oh, really?
In Centralia, which is a fun part of our culture. But there's just a lot of culture in Centralia, and I'm an out-of-towner. There's just a lot of culture in Centralia that I'm excited for people to see, and I just hope that we can continue to be a proponent of bringing people here from out of town and hoping that they can have an enjoyable experience in a cool town.
And also, you have an approach for painting and encouraging young entrepreneurs in this area.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. We just had our trade show for the Little Egypt CEO program. So one of, 75 or so CEO programs that happen throughout the state or country. Started in Effingham, Illinois, but 10 high school juniors and seniors from 6 Marion County high schools. Then there's several CEO programs in our area. Clinton County has a CEO program. Marion County has a CEO program. Bond, Fayette County all have CEO programs, but it's basically a class that kids can take in their junior, senior year where they get dual credit, college and high school credit, and they get to start their own business. And we don't meet at school. We meet in an offsite location. And I'm really just there to facilitate them chasing a business, putting together a business plan and soliciting investment and putting it together and manufacturing a product or putting on an event or providing a service to their community, like detailing cars. And yeah, it's been a hugely rewarding. And for me, it's like we're hitting this thing from both sides. The top-down approach of like trying to bring in the investment it takes to redo old historic buildings and create cool spaces for entrepreneurs to occupy. Mm-hmm. And then also capturing the minds of young entrepreneurs who are trying to stand ahead and take a step forward from their peers in high school and learn these lessons earlier with the hopes that they'll come back and be those entrepreneurs that, put their businesses in these spaces. So
this is a perfectly placed question. I'm going to niche down as I tell us to do in this business world. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a beverage company?
Run. No.
Don't tell your CEO entrepreneurs
you
that.
better love it. I mean, obviously there's easier businesses to start. You better love it. And I don't think it's complicated. There's a lot of beer companies. There's a lot of wine companies. You have to make good product. You have to have the ability to taste good product and know what a good beer tastes like, what a good wine tastes like, what a good mead tastes like, whatever it is that you're going to manufacture. You don't have to be cute. You can make a classic style that's been made for thousands of years. You just have to do it right. And you have to make it better than your competitors. Or you have to be able to make a quality product and partner it with an incredible customer experience, whether that's a property or a service or the people that you have working for you. Again, I think our mission of making good wine and bringing people together has been a little bit of the secret sauce for us. And I think that has to do with how great our people are at taking care of people and providing that customer experience. And then how hard we try to just make wines that are true to the vision that I had at the very beginning of, can we make high quality wines locally in Illinois? And even if they don't go to France and win some award like California did in the 70s, right? To put them on the map and beat the classic Bordeaux with a Cabernet, that's world-class wines. We can make very, very good, really enjoyable wines that aren't just sweet wines and bring that together with a quality experience. And I think you can be successful. So my advice for anybody that's getting into the beverage business is just, you better love what you do and you better have a pretty good idea of what good tastes like.
All right, there you go. And then we're all a couple questions here. What is, and this is always a fun one, especially for a maker, whether you're making bourbon or wine or coffee. Here in Crooked Creek, what favorite beverage?
Crooked Creek beverage?
Yes. What's your favorite wine here? And outside, out in the town, what's your favorite beverage?
Okay. My favorite Crooked Creek beverage is our rosé. Year over year, it's the one I look the most forward to drinking. And for me, wine sometimes is about like the time of day and the place. And I don't think anything beats like the weather starting to warm up in Illinois, the sun shining on a May, Memorial Day kind of, poolside day, and having a nice glass of rosé and a barbecue or something. It's kind of what I look forward to from a Crooked Creek perspective. Outside of that, I really like a lot of different beverages. I love beer. I like spirits. I don't know. I think wine is still probably my go-to, and I would still go with like my favorite beverage is a really nice Italian red wine with a pizza or a pasta.
Perfect. All right. So, you have any upcoming events or promotions you'd like to talk about here?
Yeah. So one of the things that we take a lot of pride in, I think it's super fun for people to come and see, is our downtown summer concert series every year. So at the wine bar downtown, we block off Broadway. We get permission to block off Broadway every Sunday in summer. So the first Sunday this the 7th in July. So after the 4th of July holiday, all the way through to a big event that we have here in Centralia called the Balloon Fest. So that's an event that the Chamber of Commerce puts on every year. I think it's a tradition here in Centralia. We have, 40, 50 different balloonists in Foundation Park flying over. So every Sunday in the summer, we block off Broadway. We put up a big stage. We bring in big bands, and we have lots of different community activities, and community groups fill the street and enjoy a free concert. And it's just a ton of fun. So yeah, come check out the Downtown Summer Concert Series any Sunday in July or August in downtown Centralia.
And we'll find you there.
Yeah, you'll find us there.
All right, great. Thanks a lot. Well, Shannon, this has been a great story on how to be, just a business owner in general. You have that vision. Then you came in as purchasing this winery, and coming in with some ideas, being able to adjust with those ideas, but still keeping your vision intact, and then the developing this relationship with the wine growing, recognizing what you have, and how you influence the other, down to finding these 24 wines, down to you have your 5, 6.
No, we have more than that now. I think we're at about 15 or 16 still, but we try to hit something for every palate. So many of those are still on the sweet side. We 50% of people still want a sweet blackberry wine or a sweet strawberry wine. So we have a fruit wine line. We have a semi-sweet grape wine line, and then we have our signature, dry wine.
Yeah, and then you narrow that down to where you want to, of the wines you want to scale with. That you look forward to the rosé, which is a Stella Rosé, and in your second location in the community, now you take that and spin that into the influence of growing this town from the top down, and also by maintaining this youth presence, this youth entrepreneurial presence in the area, and continue to grow the influence here, and really have something special beyond the winery itself. This is a great journey, great story. And if anybody's listening, you get some great advice. If you're having a winery or any other beverage industry for that matter, these are great notes to take. Shannon, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matt.
Great. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages with Matthew Shep. Check the show notes for our guest contact information and connect with Matthew Shep on LinkedIn today.